As entrepreneurs, there's a reason why we decided to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to tell the stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. On today's podcast, I'm speaking with Jamie Miller. Jamie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. First of all, I think we're going to love listening to your accent for the next 20, 30 minutes or so. But beyond that, you are an expert at communication. And from what I've heard you speak in the past, you've just brought huge value to audiences. So I'm really appreciate you being here. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation, man.
Love that. I'm happy to hear that you've seen me a few times now, Phil.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. The compliments there.
Anytime, and well deserved. So your brand is the art of conscious communication. And what I'd like you to do, can you define what do you think conscious communication is? Like, what is your part of that? What is your thoughts behind conscious communication?
So it's interesting. Conscious communication in the most briefest form is just going into a conversation with another human being with what I call having a predetermined outcome before you go into the conversation, whereby you learn that there is a good fit and there is an agreement between yourself and the other person. It can be, and thankfully communication affects all walks of life, so it can be a parent trying to get their kids to clean their bedrooms, all right? And a conscious communication is not telling the kids, go clean your rooms, make your beds. A conscious communication is asking the right questions that get the kids to say, I think we should go and make our beds and clean our rooms. And now as a parent, you're saying, I agree with you. And it's the same thing whether you're, someone loaning money through the private money club and you're trying to get a higher interest rate, on your money from someone who's borrowing it from you. It's basically just going into the conversation being like, what would be the most ideal outcome that a person would be looking for from that conversation? Like, so for me, being invited to a podcast, for instance, me being conscious of that is, how can I leave it so the audience is like making comments to you, being like, oh my God, Andrew, that was like, whenever this gets aired, Andrew, that was a fantastic podcast. So if I was throwing out, for instance, subtle questions to the audience, do you think your audience will like that? At minute 15, that's me consciously. Now the audience will listen, hear a question. Did I like that? Yes, I really like that. And now they're going to be more likely to comment because questions getting more engagement of people. So that would be a roundabout way to describe being more conscious in our communication, asking questions where we want the answer to them. And because another example of unconscious, just to make it more clarity, is someone might turn around to someone and say, some of your audience members, if they're going out there aspiring entrepreneurs, someone might tell them, I think your services are expensive. Well, if that entrepreneur who's listening to this posed this question, why do you think it's expensive? It wouldn't be a conscious question because it's not going to help them to bring that client on board, because someone said, I think you're expensive, and they've now asked them, why do you think that? Which has given that person the ability to justify something that they're not going to want to hear. So that hopefully would resonate.
Now, what would you say instead? Like, instead of saying, if somebody came and said, I think you're very expensive, instead of saying, why do you think I'm expensive? Which does mean people love to justify, they're going to make their decision emotionally and they like to justify that emotion. What would you do instead?
So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to buffer the objection, all right, on purpose with these kinds. You don't want to ever agree with someone you don't agree with. And you certainly don't want to say, I disagree with you. It's not like that. That's going to be an argument. So anytime someone throws up an objection my way, all right, like I said, let's say Jamie, like 36 grand, because that's from Raleigh, all right. If I said, I've asked someone emotional questions to get them to a place where I say, hey, can you see where 36,000 is sensible? And everyone be like, oh, Jamie, yeah, absolutely, I can see where that's sensible. Let's say someone said, Jamie, 36 grand. All right, that sounds kind of expensive. Just an example. And now your audience gets to use this for their own line of whatever service or work or product they're going to be selling to people. I would turn around to that person and be like, I get it. I can see maybe at this moment in time where that could be a thought process. Hey, there's something around the investment I've not had a chance to share with you yet. Is it okay if I share something with you? And if you notice, I use the word investment, not cost. All right. So something around the investment I've not had a chance to share with you yet. Is it okay if I share something with you? The second I say, is it okay if I share something with you? I know more likely the person in front of me is going to listen to me. Why? Because I said, is it okay if I share something with you? So they're going to be more likely to listen. And then I'll say, just out of curiosity, did you go to college? And it's a question. And 95% of the time, the person's like, yeah, I went to college. I'm like, do you know, my clients, now I'm going to put in their head, so group psychology. You know, a lot of my clients have told me they went to college and they didn't learn the things that I taught them, in college. Would you agree with that notion based on hearing give my talks? Absolutely, that stuff's not. And a lot of my clients will then tell me that the stuff I teach them is more valuable to them than what they paid for college. Would you also be in agreement? Hey, well, now that I put it that way, can you see 36 grand actually a really sensible investment? And they'll be like, do you know what, Jamie, you're right. When you put it that way, I can see 36 grand is a sensible investment. What I'm not doing is I'm not saying, why do you think it's expensive? Well, I think it's expensive for da 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 da. I don't have to listen to that conversation. And I'm not telling them, what do you mean 36 grand is expensive? You have to pay this for this, or you buy a car, it goes down in value. I'm not telling them statements and hoping. I'm just posing questions, because the truth of the matter is, I know the things that I teach, they aren't taught in college. My college is 300 grand for a liberal arts education. The chances are people have invested in, who I'm in college of, they've invested maybe more than 36 grand. I just have to get them to connect the dots with those questions. So, but just to make it a lesson for here, someone says something you don't like, objectionable, it's too expensive, or whatever it could be, just say, I get it. I can see where that's a thought process at this moment in time. If there's something I've not had a chance to share yet, is it okay if I share something with you? And that gives your brain also a chance. Where am I going to take this direction? Let's say you have a realtor listening in, just for an extra example. Oh, we're going to hold off. We think the market's going to crash, or we think the rates are going to come down, right? Which is a problem. You know what? I get it. I can see where that's a thought process. There's something around the market I've not had a chance to share with you yet. Is it okay if I share something with you? Yes. Hey, and then I go multiple choice question on purpose. Hey, would you say you've got really lousy taste, or would you say you've got pretty good taste when it comes to buying a home? Knowing that what is 99.9% people going to say? They're going to be like, I've got good taste. I'll be like, well, look, you're saying you're going to wait for the rates or the market to come down. All right, since you've got good taste, when that rate does come down, is that going to give you more of a chance of getting the home you want? Or will it give you less of a chance of getting the home that you want? And I'll let them do the math. Like, if they look perplexed, I'll be like, well, look, you've got good taste. More people will love that home. All right. And if the rates come down, more peer eyes on that. Does that make logical sense to you? Yes. Okay. So rather than waiting, what would be a better scenario for you? Jamie, I think we should keep on and find the home that we love. And then when the rates come down and we get that home, we'll refinance. I'm like, fantastic, we're on a good page. But I'm letting them tell me, not me tell them. So those are hopefully a couple of examples for people to see where it works in multiple situations.
Exactly. The power of a well-stated question. Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think that also goes back to a lot of wisdom that we hear, ask more questions than you say, and you have two ears and one mouth for a reason, things like that. But I think it's a really powerful technique, and it allows people to kind of you to guide the conversation without trying to force them into anything. You're just guiding into a specific direction.
And remember, the situation we just talked about is when you're facing an objection. Typically, you're not going to face an objection until halfway, 3/4 of the way through your dialogue. All right, even if someone came up to me and said, what's the cost of your training? Or if I'm a realtor, what's the fees you charge? Or financial advisor, or I'm a person with private money club. What interest rates? What do you loan? What interest rates do you do your loan at? I'm not going to immediately just tell them I do it at this. I'll be like, look, I'll absolutely share that with you just real quick. All right. Do you care just about the rate, or do you also care about the caliber of the person that you're going to be using this regard? And they're going to be a caliber. I'm like, great. So what is a characteristic that you do value? If there was one characteristic that you value, all right, and then I would take them off in that direction. All right, rather than throwing out, I like just because I think I'm amazing. This is my commission or this is my rate. It's like most people are just going to say, yeah, I need to think about it or stuff. Like that can get eliminated when you pose the right question to start off the dialogue. But you want to start you don't want to just ask questions just to get a yes at the beginning. My first ever question I ask people, which your audience might like, is how do you open someone up with one question at the very beginning when you're meeting someone where you don't tell them anything about yourself? Like, so you watch me do this on a stage. Hey guys, before I start sharing with you guys around communication, what benefits would you even come up with to be better in the area of communication? And that's in a group room setting. I've got people in the audience now telling me, I'll benefit from this area. I'll benefit from this area. If I just need one person in the room saying, I'll get way more sales. I'm like, terrific. And now I said to them, who agrees with that person? You get more sales. I haven't even taught anything yet. I've got everyone in the room to basically say, the better I'm at communication, the more money I'm going to make. Then all my mission is, can I get them to see I know more than they do around communication? If they had my guidance and help, I could help them make more sales. If you're like trying to get people on your podcast, be like, hey, before I even tell you about my podcast, what benefits would you get, in your opinion, to be on my podcast? And then people will say, oh my God, da 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 da. It doesn't matter what so hopefully your audience can take away. They can start with a question that opens someone up that's not based on a yes response. It's just, so there you go.
They there's some thinking and gets them into the mindset that you want. I love that.
You want to find out what they value, because they do, like, what is the benefits they get. Yeah. It's a different psychology, and this might be different for you. And I think let me see if your audience would like this. Most people in the world get taught to sell on pain. All right, like find the pain problem, create the solution.
Yeah.
I don't sell on pain, and I'm going to make sure I make this disclaimer. Someone could outsell me all day long, every day, and find more people to buy into their product, to buy into their service. Notice I'm saying they can make way more money. However, my belief is if someone sells on pain or problems, they're going to have more problems and headaches in their life.
Yeah.
As a coach or as a service. All right, because they're selling on someone where they're struggling. So you've got to make sure you get them out of that struggle, that pain. I sell on benefits, and maybe as a psychology, when you get clients and when your audience gets clients, when they take that leap into entrepreneurialism, when they bring on clients from the benefit standpoint, the analogy I use is we're looking up a mountain and we're going to see the pinnacle, and we know we're going to face obstacles, but we are in this together. If I sell on pain, we're at the bottom of the mountain. I'm taking you back to town first.
Yeah.
All right. So I have, where's the benefits? We're going upwards, not let me take you all the way back here and find out your deepest pains. Because if I don't get you out of that spot, it ends up becoming a headache. So that's something I've never shared on a podcast before, Andrew. So I figured that might be a nice lesson.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So I always have one question, because the podcast is really about also how you got to where you are. So what was the sequence of events that happened to get you to really get this deep knowledge of the psychology of how people work and how to ask the proper questions and how to use that in your businesses? What happened? Like, what was the sequence that, yeah.
So look, I'm always, my aim in life is to remove ego. All right, from everything. It's always humility. We're always growing, we're always learning. I just took 2 months off from work, and you saw that, and I can share with you, audience. I'm not looking for sympathy, but I can share now from experience. 2 months is too long. You know, 2.5, 3 weeks of daily, what should I do today? Because my girlfriend's working. It becomes, so I've learned next year I'll do something more personal development, stimulation. Like how does Jamie Miller grow? And I share all that to say that it wasn't by accident for over 2 decades, all I did was study people. A lot of people say, Jamie, do you study psychology? I'm like, I guess I study psychology of life. Like if I say one thing, like what reaction do I get? And I didn't take like a spreadsheet and put notes, but I took mental note on a constant basis. That's never working. And then what I did was I started creating what's called a predictability pattern with people in front of me based on the kind of people I wanted to work with, based on asking certain questions and nodding my head yes to get the other person to nod their head yes, or to, you know, learning not saying the word never to someone and why that doesn't work out in our favor. And in 2018, my dad, God rest his soul, he always taught me this notion. It sunk with me was Jamie. It's always there's no substitute for experience, and he said it's always better to learn from somebody else's. And Andrew, you probably are familiar with the industry, the seminar industry to a degree, and you know there was a lot of politics, I would say, that went into that. That no matter what numbers I was bringing in, I could be sent to Grand Rapids, Michigan, when my numbers should have mean I was in California. Like, but from a personal standpoint, I was in a car with this 70-year-old man, won't share names, all right? And he was a speaker, and I was chaperoning him because he was just joining the company, and I was chaperoning, and he was complaining, and I was just like, I got home in December of 2018, and I was like, okay, my dad told me learn from other people's experiences, and I didn't have so much ego that I was like, you know what? If I don't change my life, that's going to be me when I'm 70. So I have what I call my Jerry Maguire night. I had a sleepless. Hopefully, your audience is old enough to know Jerry Maguire. I had this sleepless night where I was like, where do I provide value to another human being on this planet? And I thought to myself, I've studied sales and communication, and speaking in front of rooms of people, doing one-to-one conversations, so many different interactions over the course of over 2 decades. I'm like, can I teach another individual with an actual, you know, techniques, strategies that they can implement without having to develop a British accent and be themselves, but understand there's no script yet, there's a framework to a conversation. And thankfully I had my one client come on board between January and May that I worked with from January to May of 2019, and they ended up doing so well that I was like, okay, I proved I can teach it. So in 2019, I took what I would think. I think you mentioned a lot of this is helping people to get out their own way, or if someone's not happy in the space. And I'm going to try and make this as positive as possible. Yet, if they ever run across someone who says life goes like this, I would run away from that person because life doesn't go like that. However, what I can share, it can be more simple. It might not be easy. And I would say the hardest part of anything with being an entrepreneur is the leap in the first place. So I would encourage everyone to do the leap. And now I'm an entrepreneur and a little bit different. I'm not going to I don't get up in the morning at 4 a.m. shout affirmations at myself. I don't, my goal this year was, what can I achieve with 100 hours of work? All right. With this podcast being technically half an hour, whatever time frame we're on, within that, does it fit within that 100 hours? And that was like beginning of year. I'm going to work January till May, take off June, July, and then August through pretty much. I'll be done in November, to be upfront with you, like with any talks and things of that nature. But it's like, if your audience can get over themselves to take the leap in the first place, and then what I advocate is compounding actions every day that they enjoy doing. All right. You should be doing this podcast because you enjoy doing it, and then it doesn't feel like work, and then it can be 89 episodes or whatever amount of episodes that go. It doesn't matter. You're enjoying it. We won't have a fight internally as humans if we're enjoying what we're doing. So that's it's very simple. I didn't say it's easy. It can be very simple, all right, as advice. But it's taking that leap in the first place. It's getting that place where you understand is my current life going to get me on trajectory to where I want to go? And if not, what can I do to change that?
Yeah. We all have that thing in the back of our head. I think all entrepreneurs have this, where there's this spark back there that says something's different. This 9 to 5 isn't working. I mean, I've had it, I think a lot of people have this experience. What do I do differently? And sometimes getting that first leap is the hardest part, of doing that. It's just doing it,
Yeah.
Um,
I would
but I
like
want,
to give one bit of caveat, only
sure.
because I've got friends and people who have taken the leap at the same time that I did.
Yeah.
And then they would ask me, Jamie, how are you doing what you're doing? And I would say to them, the biggest difference is you stopped. So it's not quit. I know it sounds really simple, but if you don't quit something and you keep doing it, during the pandemic, a lot of those people, they stopped doing what we were. And so during the pandemic, I just did like everything for free through Facebook Lives every day, where it just from February till May, every day I was teaching with abundance. So come May, that was my adapting and pivoting. I just never stopped. And it doesn't mean you have to have everything figured out. You just don't stop, right?
Yeah.
Because what happens is someone gets a great idea, they start something, then they stop it. The great idea doesn't go away. And then in 2 years' time, they want to restart it again. I'm sharing as advice, if they just kept doing stuff, even as minuscule as it is, they won't recognize themselves in 5 years. If you would have said, Jamie, you're going to be on a podcast with a lovely guy called Andrew in August, all right, in 2018, and then you're going to be speaking at the Pentagon in October, I'd be like, really? Like, it wouldn't have necessarily sunk in, but that's because you become different as you compound those actions.
Absolutely. And just to kind of touch on that for a second, you by the time this podcast is going to be released, you will have spoken at the Pentagon,
Right.
of all places, and brought your wisdom to them. Just kind of wanted to give a shout out to that one. Yeah. So, I'm kind of curious about that too. What were the sequence of events that led to that? Was this just sort of like as much as you can discuss about it, but I'm gonna, that's something that piqued my interest, and I'd like to hear how you got to that, what sequence of events happened to allow you to be able to speak at the Pentagon? Because that's a big deal. Yeah.
So different people in business and entrepreneurial will typically fall under two terms. All right. They'll either be a farmer or a hunter. All right. And the farmer plants seeds, they build relationships, all right, with snow. And then you've got a hunter, and they're like basically they're hunting for business. And typically a farmer is viewed in a lot more positive light, whereas a hunter, if they're selling, they can be offensive to people, like, because it's like you're not interested in me, so I go with what I call a hybrid model. All right, I'm a farmer and a hunter, and if I want to bring on clients at the time of meeting them, which you've watched me do a 45-minute talk, and then people come immediately up to me, here's my credit card within 5 minutes. All right. Now that could seem hunter-esque, yet there's been all this build work of farming, of planting seeds with the right relationships in the beginning. So hopefully your audience gets this as much as I can elaborate. You can be both. Like any one of your audience members could turn around to someone and say, look, this is what I do. Hey, just out of curiosity, is it natural to want to go on vacation this year also? And if the person in front of you, yeah, that's a question. It's not, I want to go, is it natural to want to go on a summer vacation this year too? Yes. Okay. Then naturally you're going to understand, would you happen to know anyone who might enjoy or want this experience in their lives? Yeah. Do you see how you can go from, I'm building a farming, I've got myself to a place now, Andrew, where I don't chase anything. I never, like, you reach out, Jamie, would you be on my podcast? I'm not asking you, hey, Andrew, I'd really like to be on your podcast.
Yep.
It's the same thing with the Pentagon. I never asked anyone, hey, can you get me in the Pentagon? Just same way, I'm not going to ask someone, can you get me on a Netflix documentary, or can you get me a TED Talk? I'm letting the universe conspire. And it sounds kind of naive, yet my belief is, I think people only remember the way you leave them feeling. That's it. All right. So whenever I come to an event, no one in the room is feeling sold. They're seeing baseball hats, they're seeing relationships, and I create what I call lifetime relationship. Andrew, in 2030, you might never, it won't happen, but let's say we didn't speak for 6 years.
Mhm.
Andrew, you can always call me up, no matter where I'm at in the world, and we will feel you will feel special to me. Why? Don't you, too many people think they need to be marketing and have thousands of followers and all this stuff. I look to prove that I'm even looking to see. I just take myself completely off of social media and prove to the world you can speak in the Pentagon and millions of dollars in a month and not have to be known out there from that capacity. And then people will feel even more of a special bond. So the way the Pentagon came around, I have former military clients. Don't tell any of my other clients, but my former military ones are my favorites. And I'll tell you why. I think they get programmed way before they meet me to be the best versions of themselves. All right. So it's a combination of having former military clients where they're just like, Jamie, we need to get you in the TAP program, which is Transition Assistance Program. And then I had someone in Orlando who I first met when I first started my business that was like, dude, I've been asked to speak at the Pentagon and they wanted me to talk about this topic. Now, this guy, just so you know, he throws events all the time. I've not ever spoken at one. I've not spoken at one of his events. He's in Orlando. I've never spoken at one of his events. He calls me up. He goes, they've asked me if I know anyone in this space, and you're the only person that I know. So I'm putting you forward. But one of the things he said I love about you, Jamie. He goes, you've never once tried to ride piggyback on anything I've done. You've never you've never asked me, like, can you? And that's why I say there's a farmer approach, is treating someone really well, right? And then you use the word when you introduce me, this is expert at communication. Everyone in the world loves praise. It's always great when it's genuine praise. Now, if I put you on the spot on your own podcast, were you being genuine when you said expert? You're not going to be like, no, Jamie, I was lying right to your face, and I just want my audience to think you're an expert.
I just wanted you on for the accent. That's it.
The point being, though, is I've done this for enough consistency now where people are referring to me as what? An expert. That means that not only am I leaving them feeling a certain way, but they're getting a value as a result of the sophisticated expertise that I'm providing to them. So the next lesson is, as long as your audience can provide legitimate service, legitimate product that works, and they build relationships wherever they go, and they're not a mute. Like, I'm in a coffee place right now that I love. Like, it's down in Delray Beach. All right. Like, shout out to the place. And the amazing thing is I'm living a lifestyle by design.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the have your non-negotiables, as they're called. All right. But here's what I'm open to. This morning I was at the gym. And I've got a speaking engagement with a financial advising firm. All right, the guy's name's Arnold on September 16th. Why? Because he goes, dude, what do you do? I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I said, he goes, and I threw out there, funny, he said he's a wealth advisor. I said, oh, I'm speaking in California at this company at the Ritz Laguna Niguel in like September 3rd through 6th. He goes, hey, when you come down, would you speak at our company? I'm like, yeah. I said, look, I can come down, but it means this for your audience. You can't sit on a couch at home and go, and business come your way. But what they can do is put themselves around people where I come here because I enjoy the coffee and I'm enjoying this right now. I've not come here to bring on a client. The audience, though, that listens in, should be open to going to places that they want to go to, not hand out business cards, not do stuff that's like gonna be offensive. But can they create situations where they create random conversations? Someone could be reading a book in here, like, hey, dude, curiosity, what's the book? Oh, da, 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 da. I always love books. I take one thing away from a book. Like, what's one thing that would be an epiphany? Do you like sharing abundance? Like, yeah. The wrong person says no. I'm like, you know what? I'll get on my day. I'll leave you to it. But the right person will be like, this is one thing I took from the book. Oh, I love that. All right. Like, hey, what do you do when you're not reading books in coffee places? All right. And it's just it's strong, not just random. You read the body language. If they're just like, dude, please, like, just go away. I'm away. But if they're amiable, and here's what I know is going to happen. If I make it all about them first, They will. I'm not going to just throw it out there if they don't ask, but the chances are they're going to say, "What do you do?" I'm like, "Oh." And now you've got people underestimate the power of the what do you do, and they think that it has to be formal networking. All right, your audience can go more informal. Every opportunity to get in front of someone, all right, can be so. I felt like long-winded there, Andrew. Yet my hope is that some clarity of some lesson gets through to them.
Absolutely. And talking about books, my last question.
Okay.
Towards the end, what is one book or podcast that has had a huge impact on your life that you can bring to the audience?
So, funny enough, the most powerful book that I've ever read, all right, that taught me so much. It has kind of become part of my business too, to a massive degree. But it's A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. All right. And so everyone loves it's the best book I've ever read where it's stories. It's how to live in the now, how to we're never a victim. All right. So it gets you to it got me over a past relationship like a light switch. All right. And it's all about consciousness, hence like conscious communication. Like I think one of the best compliments a client ever gave me, he says, "Jamie, I've read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People." And he goes, "And I've read Eckhart Tolle." He goes, "If Eckhart Tolle and Dale Carnegie was to have a baby, I think that you would be that person." I was like, that's a fantastic. No, because the book, so the greatest sales book ever written is How to Win Friends and Influence People. But a lot of people, millions of people have read that book. The only dilemma with that book is it doesn't teach the question to ask. So it teaches the principle, focus on the other person. But then everyone who reads that book gets robotic in the questions that they ask because they know it's like, how can I help you? It's like, well, a robot could ask that question.
Yeah.
And then I intertwine the consciousness of Eckhart Tolle's book of asking the most conscious questions. But that book has stories in it that just really resonate with me, that have stuck with me. And I said remove all the ego. I don't know anyone who's in this space yet. All right, and I'm work in progress to it. But there's a story about the person who says, "Is that so?" All right, and my goal in life is to get to the most Zen-like state of mind where anyone says something to me, I'm like, "Is that so?" And that to me is again the most Zen we can ever get in the world. But I highly recommend The New Earth for anyone who is trying to get out of a corporate job and jump into entrepreneurialism. Anyone who's been in a relationship where they felt hard done by someone, that book, read in the right context, can be like a switch.
Interesting.
Right.
Awesome. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate you as a person. I appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you, Andrew. Cheers. I appreciate being here.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Jamie, check out the links in the description.